Welcome back. This is day 7 of Ecology, and today we're going to be continuing to talk about how can we evaluate the factors affecting populations in an ecosystem. But before we get to that, we've got a do now question. So we're going to read through this passage together and then use that information to answer the question that follows. All right. So this is about cowherds discovering ticks are for the birds. South African cowherds, or cowboys, are discovering that when it comes to debugging their cattle, nature knows best. Generations of cattle owners who dipped their livestock in pesticides ended up killing not only the ticks that feast on them, but also the red-billed oxpeckers, or the birds that eat the ticks. Now environmentalists want to cut out the pesticides, hand the job back to the birds, and in the process, save them from extinction. The bird is famous for its bright red bill, yellow-ringed eyes, and voracious appetite for ticks. An oxpecker can eat 13,000 ticks a day, and meals are everywhere, on antelopes, horses, cattle, buffalo, rhino, lion, elephant, and leopard. The ticks carry a host of illnesses, including red water disease, a common killer of cattle, but are harmless to oxpeckers. So now I want you guys to pause this video and state one way that the use of pesticides to kill ticks could lead to the decline of the oxpecker population. And press play when you're ready to review it. All right. So hopefully you got that the red-billed oxpeckers rely on the ticks for food. So when the pesticides were used to kill the ticks, the oxpeckers then lost their food source. This caused the oxpeckers to die of starvation. So this is just another example of how multiple species are connected through a food web, and something that we do to one species is going to inadvertently affect others that rely on it for food or resources, okay? So all of these species are related through that giant food web. All right. Now, today we're going to be focusing more on the beaks of finches. So this is another lesson in preparation for the Beaks of Finches lab that we're going to be doing next week. So keep in mind, this is a state mandated lab. You have to take and pass this lab in order to pass the class. And remember, you now have to pass the class in order to get the regent's waiver. Just something to consider, okay? But as we work through these questions, looking at this diagram, I want us to remember that organisms that are in the same niche or job are going to compete or fight for resources, while organisms in different niches or jobs do not compete or fight for resources. So question number 1, looking at the information on the outside ring of this wheel diagram, I want you guys to pause this and write the names of any 5 finch species. All right, and press play when you're ready to review it. All right, so for this question, I'm not actually going to tell you the answers because you could have said any of these 5. So that emoji is gross. I just put a regular smiley face and it auto-corrected to that. I don't like it. Anyways, you could say the name of any of these species, okay? Just name 5 of these species and you're good. Now, number 2, look at the third ring of the wheel diagram, right? So let's count into our third, 1, 2, 3. So we're looking at this diagram right now, or this inner ring, and we're supposed to name 5 finches that use edge crushing, right? So again, pause this video, write down 5 finches that use edge crushing, and press play when you're ready to review it. All right, so for the edge crushing birds, you should have looked at this section right here, which means that those 5 finches that use edge crushing are the cactus finch, the sharp-billed ground finch, the small ground finch, the medium finch, and the large ground finch. So remember, when we're using this diagram, we're going to kind of look at it like pizza slices. And anything that has these qualities is one that we're going to write down. All right, moving on to number 3. There we go. All right, look at the third ring of the diagram. So the same one we were just looking at. Now we're going to name 4 finches with biting tips. So again, we're going to count in 1, 2, 3. We're looking at this row right here. So pause this video and write down 4 finches that have biting tips. All right, so again, for the biting tips, we're going to be looking at this third ring. So we're only looking at these finches right here, which means that for the biting tips, you could have said the vegetarian finch, the large tree finch, the small tree finch, or the woodpecker finch. All of these are organisms that have biting tips for their beaks. All right, number 4, look at the 4th ring of the diagram and now name 3 finches with probing bills. So this time we're going to count in 4 rings, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we're looking at this inner ring right here. So go ahead, same thing, pause this video and tell me, what are 3 finches that have probing bills? Right, I'm gonna do this one in red. So we're looking at this row right here, probing bills. Okay, and if we slice it up like pizza, that means we're talking about the cactus finch, the warbler finch, and the woodpecker finch. Right. So all 3 of those have probing bills. Right. And now, number 5, look at the 4th ring of the diagram and name 4 finches with crushing bills. So I'll do this in green. Same thing, we're going to count in 4 rows. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to be looking at this inner ring right here. I'm going to highlight our crushing bills in green. All right, and go ahead and pause this video, write down your answer, and press play when you're ready to review it. Right, so for our crushing bills, again, I've highlighted in green so we can focus in on the sharp-billed ground finch, the small ground finch, the medium ground finch, the large ground finch, and there's actually 5 options here. You could have also said the vegetarian finch. Okay, so it only said to name 4, but there were 5 options. You could have said the sharp-billed, the small ground, the medium ground, the small ground, or the vegetarian. And look at that, we actually just used all of our finches with those 3 questions. That's cool. All right, moving on to the next. Great, so number 6, look at the inner ring of the diagram. Name 3 finches that eat mainly animal food. So remember, whenever we're talking about the food source, we're looking at this innermost ring right here. But something to also keep in mind is that when we're talking about food on this finch diagram, the mentioning of animal food is referring to insects or bugs. The mentioning of plant food is referring to things like seeds. Okay, so again, pause this video and tell me, what are 3 finches that eat mainly animal food? All right, so for this one, you should have focused in on this section of the graph right here, mainly animal food, which means, again, if we cut up our pizza, we're talking about our large tree finch, our small tree finch, and our woodpecker finch. All 3 of these are organisms that eat mainly animal food. Okay, number 7, the word mainly means mostly or about 90% of the time. So some of these finches eat mainly animal food, but what else can these finches eat? If they eat about 90% animal food or insects, what else can they eat? Well, the only other option here is seeds, plant food, okay? So they're going to prefer to eat insects or bugs, but they also have the ability to eat seeds, maybe if there aren't any insects available on that island, okay? Number 8, look at the inner ring of the diagram. Same inner ring, we're looking at food. And now we want to name 1 finch that eats 100% animal food. Well, if we look at the inner ring of this diagram, there's only 1 small section talking about 100% animal food. And if we cut up that piece of the pizza, we're talking about the warbler finch. That's the only one that eats 100% animal food and does not even look at seeds. All right, number 9, will a finch that eats 100% animal food also eat plant food? Explain why or why not. Well, I just said, like our warbler finch, any animal that eats 100% animal food is not even going to want to look at plants. They're like, vegetables, not for me. Seeds, absolutely not, okay? They are not equipped to eat plant food. So no, they only eat animal food or insects. They will not eat plant food or seeds. And essentially the reason is their physiology won't allow them. Their beaks aren't the correct size, or their digestive system won't allow them to process those foods. All right. Moving on to number 10. Will the warbler finch compete with the medium ground finch for food? Support your answer and use the word niche in your answer. Well, we've got our warbler finch right here and our medium ground finch over here. So go ahead and pause this video. Tell me what you think. Will they compete for food? And let me know why. All right. So looking at this diagram, I see that our warbler finch eats 100% animal food, but our medium ground finch eats mainly plant food. So what does that mean? Well, that means that they are not going to compete for food. So no, they will not compete for food as they inhabit different niches. They eat different food. They've got a different job or role in that environment. The warbler finch eats only animal food, and the medium ground finch eats mainly plant food. So their niches are not going to intersect. You could have also mentioned the fact that they have different beaks, which means they are equipped for different jobs. So our medium ground finch has edge crushing bills, and our warbler finch has probing bills. So again, that is just another reason that supports the fact that they're not going to compete. They've got different jobs or roles in that environment. Number 11, the word mainly means mostly or 95% of the time. Some finches eat mainly plant food, like our medium ground finch. What else can these finches eat? What do we think? Well, similar to the last question, this means that they can also eat insects or animal food. They are going to prefer to eat those seeds, but their beaks do give them the capability to eat insects as well if they absolutely have to. Right. Number 12, name 2 finches that will compete for plant food and support your answer. So for this question, you're going to want to focus in on the parts of the graph that deal with animals or the finches that eat mainly plant food. All right, so go ahead and pause this video, answer the question, and press play when you're ready to review it. All right. So for this question, God, that ugly smile is back. I hate that emoji. But for this question, I'm not actually going to tell you 2 specific organisms because you had a lot of options to choose from here. Again, if we cut our pizza of this graph, you could have chosen any of these organisms that eat mainly plant food. Right, so pick your 2 favorite slices and go with it. But please note that these 2 finches, whichever 2 you choose, have crushing bills that are equipped for eating mainly plant food. They have similar niches and that will therefore compete for food. Right. And number 13, name 2 finches that will compete for animal food and support your answer. So for this question, you're going to want to focus in on the section of the graph that deals with animal food. So for this one, again, you had multiple options, and also my diagram's getting a little bit messy, so I'm going to get rid of that. For this one, you had multiple answers, but if I were you, I would focus in on the 2 organisms that have the same beak type, because that means that they will be in similar environments, have the same equipment to eat the same food. So you could have chosen any of these organisms that eat animal food, but I focused my answer in on these 2 right here because, again, they've got the same beak. So I focused in on the small tree finch and the large tree finch and said that they will compete for animal food. They both have biting tips and grasping bills equipped for eating mainly animal food, and so they will compete over resources. So again, you could have said any of these organisms that eat animal food. Just make sure you support your answer with reasoning like I did. Great. And our last slide of the day, number 14, name 1 finch that will compete with the warbler finch for animal food and support your answer. So we find our warbler finch down here. Remember, he only eats animal food and he's got a probing bill. So what's going to compete with that warbler finch? Well, I said that the woodpecker finch will compete with the warbler finch for animal food because, again, they both are eating animal food as well as they both have probing bills equipped for eating that same food. So you can see that they both, I'm going to erase this line. If we're looking at the probing bill category, they both fall under it, which means they're going to have similar beaks that equip them to eat the same food, which is, of course, animal food. Okay? And so because of that, they will compete over resources if they're in the same environment. And last but not least, number 15, will the medium ground finch compete for food with the large tree finch and support your answer? Well, let's find each of these organisms on our graph. So we've got our medium ground finch over here. We see that medium ground finch has edge crushing bills and eats mainly plant food. Okay, and we see that our large tree finch has biting tips, grasping bills, and eats mostly animal food. I think I just combined the words mostly and mainly, right? So will those 2 organisms compete? What do we think? Well, no. The medium ground finch and the large tree finch are in different niches. They've got different roles in the environment. The medium ground finch eats mostly plant food, as we saw down here. And the large tree finch is going to eat mainly animal food. So they've got different beaks. Their beaks are different shapes and sizes, which means that they are equipped for different jobs. They've got different roles in the environment and they won't compete over resources. All right. And that is all I've got for you guys today. So please make sure you fill out your exit ticket to get credit for doing this. Submit these notes on Google Classroom. Let me know if you have any questions and have a wonderful day. I will see you guys tomorrow.